Good evening. I am the independent moderator for tonight's community outreach meeting. Today is August 23rd, and this is an informational meeting about a proposed marijuana establishment to be located at 400R West Street, Uxbridge, Massachusetts, 01569. The proposed operator, Apple Guy Flowers LLC, seeks to obtain a marijuana cultivator license at this address. Apple Guy Flowers LLC is managed by Lucas Thayer. We have with us tonight attorney for Apple Guy Flowers, Quinn Heath. Tonight's meeting will open with a brief presentation by the applicant's attorney, followed by an opportunity for public comment and engagement. An opportunity was given to the public to submit questions in advance, and no questions have been received at this time.
All right, thank you very much, Matt. So tonight I'll be covering 5 topics that we're legally required to cover at this informational meeting. And then afterwards, if any members of the public join, we'll let them ask any questions that they have. So to start, the first topic that I'm legally required to cover is the type of marijuana establishment to be located at the proposed address. So as Matt stated, Apple Guy Flowers LLC is seeking to apply for a marijuana outdoor cultivation license, Tier 2. The cultivation license allows for cultivation of marijuana plants to be sold wholesale for further packaging, consumer sale, or additional manufacturing. Cultivation can take place indoors or outdoors in the state of Massachusetts, and this proposal would be for an outdoor cultivation license. This is a Tier 2 operation, which is one of the smaller scale projects that can be licensed. There are 11 total tiers that allow for a maximum of up to 100,000 square foot of canopy to be located at a single site in Massachusetts. This Tier 2 operation, on the other hand, would allow for a maximum canopy of only 20,000 square feet, a fifth of what the larger cultivators in the state can use. Second topic that we're legally required to cover tonight is information adequate to demonstrate that the location will be maintained securely. So as a part of the licensure process, Apple Guy Flowers will need to develop a security plan that meets a series of strict regulatory requirements imposed by the State Cannabis Control Commission. All cannabis businesses in the state are required to adhere to these strict requirements, and they have many, including security camera coverage, and that security camera coverage has a lot of specific requirements within, including requiring 24/7 coverage with failure notifications that are sent by text or email to the managers of the establishment, video cameras covering all areas that have marijuana or cash being handled at any time. The cameras have to have HD footage with time, date, and location stamps, and they have to be able to produce a clear image of any recorded footage at any point in time for the purposes of identifying the people who are coming in or leaving the establishment. Recordings are required to be kept for 90 days or for the duration of an investigation by local or state enforcement or regulators. In addition to the security cameras, Apple Guy Flowers will have to have an alarm system, including panic alarm buttons for staff, perimeter alarms on the doors, and perimeter alarms on the windows. So there's really no entering or leaving this facility without being recorded and without a notification being sent if you're not there with a valid authorized purpose. Speaking of valid purposes, this establishment will have to define specific limited access areas, and specific employees will have to be granted to access to different areas based on what their job purposes and functions are. This establishment will have commercial grade locks and will have access point logs. So any staff who enter and leave the building, there's going to be a log kept by that, usually by a digital key fob. And anyone who's a visitor will have to be checked in and logged into a visitor log. There'll also be a secure perimeter fence around this facility, as it's an outdoor cultivation facility. Anyone who visits this facility has to be 21 years of age or older, even if they're a member of law enforcement. Massachusetts law requires that cannabis establishments only be visited by people who are 21 years of age. And to that end, anyone who isn't an employed staff member who's had their ID checked and gone through a background check will have to sign into a visitor log. That takes us to the third topic that's legally required to be covered at this meeting, and that's steps that will be taken by this marijuana establishment to prevent diversion to minors. As a cultivator, this establishment is not going to be open to the public. Only individuals with a purpose for being here or employees of the facility are going to be permitted to enter. Visitor intake procedures prohibit minors from entering the facility, as I stated, so there's really no direct access by minors to product. Now, this is not a facility that's going to have any consumers or members of the public in it in general, as it's a cultivator. And in addition to that, cultivators in all marijuana establishments are required to use seed to sale tracking. So every plant, once it's a certain height, will have to be logged into a seed to sale tracking system. That plant will be tracked as it goes through the system and as it's turned into products. And every product that's given to consumers will have a tag on it, so you can actually track where those products have come from. The reason that this is relevant for a cultivator is because the cultivator will have partnerships with retailers and product manufacturers who further distribute these products. And in the event that there were ever an event where diversion to minors were occurring, Appleguy Flowers would have the tools needed to investigate further and cut off those business relationships. So overall, there's a relatively low risk for diversion to minors. And in the event that diversion to minors occurred, the establishment would be able to take swift steps to address that. Moving on to the fourth topic that'll be covered by tonight, and that's a plan by the marijuana establishment to positively impact the community. The State Cannabis Control Commission requires all licensees to have a plan to positively impact areas that have been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs. That's a specifically defined group by the state regulators. It includes a number of geographic locations throughout the state, as well as a number of specifically defined groups, including individuals with past drug convictions for cannabis possession and their spouses and children. Lucas Thayer and Appleguy Flowers are planning to identify groups to work with to donate produce or monetary funds to. So if you know any groups in this area that are working with the groups that I just described, please reach out to us either during or after the meeting, because we'd love to identify those groups that we can work with. That brings us to the fifth topic required to be covered at this meeting tonight, which is information adequate to demonstrate that the location will not constitute a nuisance as that term is defined by law. As a cultivator, there's relatively low opportunity for this establishment to be a nuisance. There's going to be a low impact on traffic, as there's only going to be really low numbers of vans coming to the establishment to bring goods to other establishments. As I said, there's not really any direct to consumer deliveries happening from this establishment. Traffic is really going to be limited to just the people who are working on this small scale cultivation establishment. Odor is another general concern for outdoor cultivators, and that's something that Appleguy Flowers will definitely be looking into and make sure that they're thinking critically about odor mitigation strategies. That said, as I stated, this is a low-tier cultivation establishment. Odor is not really a great concern for this scale of establishment, and in the event that odor does become an issue, there are steps that can be taken to rectify that, including planting plants next to the marijuana that can counteract that odor, or using other kind of more intensive technological odor mitigation strategies, such as releasing certain anti-odor chemicals in the air. There's other kind of opportunities that are out there if odor does become an issue. But that said, being a cannabis operator and having a cannabis license from the state doesn't give you any exception under the law to be a nuisance. If Appleguy Flowers were to ever be a nuisance, you can complain to the local building inspector. You can bring a nuisance action in court. There's a lot of different ways that Massachusetts makes available for people impacted by a nuisance to bring legal remedies. So that covers all 5 of the topics that were legally required to be covered tonight. So I'm going to turn it back over to Matt to see if we have any members of the public who have questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Heath. It appears that there's nobody here, so I can confirm nobody from the public has joined. So that concludes the meeting for tonight. Have a great night.
Thank you very much.